Hello, and welcome to the Professor Podcast with Ruth and Claire. Each episode, we talk about a particular topic in the life of a professor. We are tenure-track faculty members in the sciences, working at a primarily undergraduate university in California. The purpose of our podcast is reflection, so we bring something we think is working and something we're working on to discuss.
Welcome to the Professor Podcast with Ruth and Claire. I'm Ruth.
And I'm Claire. And today we're going to talk about virtual teaching. But first, how was your week, Ruth?
My week, last week was a bit of a hellscape, to be honest. It did not, everything kind of fell apart a bit. And I think it was interesting because I noticed like the whole internet seemed to be hitting the wall also. Yeah. And yeah, I was really grumpy and I felt like just pulled in 10 different directions. I think, yeah. And so I felt I was way too grumpy with the poor kids. It is not their fault. It's intense being with them all the time.
Sure.
They're very lovely, but even they will come in when you're in the shower and like chat with you. And you're like, oh, this is like way oversharing. But one time they even like walked past Eric when I was on the toilet to bring me a banana to open. I was like, this is like so insane. So that's been a lot. But one thing that's very exciting is they have gone Harry Potter bananas.
Oh, really?
Speaking of bananas, they've gone just cuckoo for Harry Potter. So they have been, like the eldest is reading them. Uh-huh. And then they're also both listening to the audiobooks. The audiobooks of Harry Potter are amazing. Amazing. This guy, Jim Dale, reads the whole thing and I've been really enjoying that because they listen to a lot of audiobooks during the day and all of them are pretty good quality, but Harry Potter is like normally I'm like, okay, it's time to go back to schoolwork, and I'm like, okay, let's just do 10 more minutes of Harry Potter. So that's been super nice. But how about you? How's your week? Oh, sorry, you go.
Oh, I was just going to say Jim Dale does all the voices, right? He really makes it.
He's so good.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah. And Harry Potter, like, I think sometimes I've fallen into the trap, back to our Harry Potter podcast, but like, I think I've fallen into the trap of forgetting like just how well crafted it is. Because like when you listen to the Philosopher's Stone, or as you guys call it, the Sorcerer's Stone, like it kind of, you forget like it's so tightly all packed together. Like it's just fabulous. Very well.
Now, interestingly, you are listening to the American audio tapes, whereas my family always preferred the British audio tapes with Stephen Fry reading them.
Oh,
different,
wow.
Totally different thing, but very awesome.
Maybe I need to check those out too.
You could listen to
and
it
then
again.
We could just fully transform our podcast into Harry Potter. So that'd be perfect.
Okay, yeah, so moving on from Harry Potter. My week was good. One thing I wanted to tell you about was I updated my computer, which I'm one of those people that does not do that. And
I don't even, do you mean you got a new computer or
no,
you did something
like,
to your old?
You know how...
I don't know. Whatever you're going to say, I'm going to be like, no. But sorry, go.
I'm sure it happens to you too, that your computer will pop up and say, there's a new update available, and I just ignore those.
Close it.
Yeah, exactly. But today it got to the point where I said, okay, I'll allow it. And it turned out I was so far behind, I had to do a whole bunch of updates. And anyway, by the time it was done updating, a couple problems had arisen, like my Dropbox no longer, or Dropbox was fine actually. Google Drive no longer synced because like files had moved around and all the updates. Anyway, I feel like I reinforced my desire to not update.
You're not you're not encouraging me to do this. So, whoa, that is intense.
But anyway, now I'm totally up to date. And Ralph says that probably if I updated more regularly, I wouldn't run into problems.
It wouldn't be so traumatic. Isn't that the thing though? Like if you did clean your wardrobe out every whatever, yes, it wouldn't be. Yeah, dude, but everything feels so intense about computers now.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because if this broke, what would I do? I'd need another computer right now. Like
immediately. And how would you even order such a thing without your computer? Like it's
a good point.
My computer made a funny flash and it like literally put the heart across me. It was not. Yeah. Very intense. Okay, so can I do my quote?
Yes. What do you have for us? Is it Harry Potter?
It is, of course, Harry Potter.
Great.
Yes. Yeah, because that's the other thing. Then we've been watching the movies like serialized, so we've been doing like 20 minutes a night, and they're just, it's super exciting. It makes me wish, because you are much, much younger, but I didn't have Harry Potter as a kid. Like, I only discovered it when I was 19.
I see. I was like right around Harry's age when they were coming out, which was pretty perfect.
That is perfect. I worked in a summer camp, and these kids were having this massive fist fight and like really beating this kid up. I'm not laughing, sorry, but so I was like, what is going on? And these other two boys who were being the violent ones were like crying, and they were like, he told us the end of Prisoner of Azkaban. And they were so distraught, and I was like, what is this thing? And so that was my introduction.
That's how you found out.
I found out about Harry Potter, but they ruined the whole thing about Sirius Black. I was almost tempted to let them continue, but I didn't. I restrained myself. Anywho, sorry. Okay, this is super random, and I'm not even totally, I kind of know why I picked this quote, but it's Professor Trelawney.
Oh, interesting.
And so she is saying to them, so you may have chosen to study divination, the most difficult of the magical arts, but I must warn you at the outset that if you do not have the sight, there is very little I'll be able to teach you. And so I'm not quoting this as being pro this, but it really reminded me, I went to some workshop and they were talking about like really terrible syllabi. And one of the things was someone had actually written like, you're either a math person or you're not. And I remember being so blown away and being like, well, what the hell is the point of us then? If people have this just innate ability, then why would you ever, like, what's the point of teachers then? But it's kind of, it kind of called out to me a bit, because I really truly believe in a growth mindset for my students. And I really truly don't believe in it about myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
because I'm
totally.
really like, you're either a person who just has the charisma to teach, or, you know, even with, I'm trying to like write a grant at the moment. And I had a meeting with the grant person, and it was just barely suppressing my hysteria of like, I can't do this. What are you talking about? There's no way I could. I'm like, so yes. So it was just interesting to think about my own terribly fixed, rigid mindset.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah.
And Trelawney's an old fraud as well. So that's, I wonder, are people more likely to have that attitude of like, oh, well, you either have it or you don't, if you know you're an old fraud and you aren't really.
It does seem like it takes extra confidence to say, anybody can learn this. You know, the things that I know is not actually, you know, unique, because anybody else could learn them if they wanted to. That does take some confidence, some gumption.
Right. Yeah, and like that vulnerability. And now I'm just having a whole thought about an episode on that, because, but it's like this double-edged sword, because sometimes if you admit like, this is hard for me too, some people will be like, well, that's because you're stupid. Then they don't take you seriously. So it's like, yeah. Anyway, okay, so I'm just completely going off the rails. So do you want to tell us a bit about what is working for you, or just where are you at with virtual teaching, and then what is working?
Sure. So, so we decided to have this episode because we're both half a semester into virtual teaching, and so
we're experts now. So we
at least know a few things, but definitely not as much as we would like. So, so I guess I have two things that I feel like is working well that I want to carry on to future virtual teaching experiences. One is the breakout rooms in Zoom, which you told me about, which are just fantastic for getting the students to interact and consider the material with each other. So I'm a huge fan of the breakout rooms in Zoom. And then the other thing is my students had a final lab report they were going to do, which was this big project. They would collect data, you know, samples, analyze them, write a report, and we lost physical teaching before they even got the data. So after a long discussion with Ralph, he helped me think of this brilliant idea of switching it from a lab report to a proposal. So they're writing a proposal now, proposing collecting the samples and analyzing them. And that's working really well, because it's really similar skills to writing a report. You have to explain the importance and what the data would mean and all that. You have to decide where to sample. You have to find your methods. It's all lots of similar stuff, but it's in this different context that is actually very useful practice. So that's working really well. They're sending in, drafts of different sections, and I'm giving them feedback, and I'm into the writing emphasis.
That's really cool. I mean, that's something like you could carry back into whatever, if we ever go back to normal. Because that's like, sometimes it's so interesting how if you just change the framing a little bit from like, we're doing another lab report to... Yeah. Like, that's so cool. It's super cool. Yeah.
And because we're not restricted, as I keep saying, to actually going and doing the sampling, different people can propose totally different sampling sites, and that's okay. We don't actually have to go to everybody's sampling site in a lab period, so it's kind of cool. They get to be free. So anyway, in a lot of ways, it's, I don't know, it's a different thing, and I think it's a cool thing to do. So I'm into it.
That's very awesome. I like that a lot. And this is like, some of this is like giving all this creativity and like reflecting on what things are desperately necessary and what actually aren't that necessary.
Sure, yes.
And, that's super cool. I like that. That is good.
What about you?
I think, have we talked, I don't know if we've talked about this on here before, but I like that you propose calling this episode virtual teaching as opposed to online teaching. Because I think online teaching is a really separate thing, and I think that a lot of courses that were already online were possibly for like a different audience.
Okay.
And there's a lot of information out there about how adult learners are very different and like really appreciate flexibility and kind of being in charge of their own pace of learning, or just all of these things, and that doesn't feel like that applies to my class. Because I have teaching an intro physics class. There's quite a few freshmen in the class, and so it's really made me think about it differently, but I don't have any answers about what to do. But the things that have been working is I have a tiny class, so I can do a lot of personal check-ins.
Okay.
So if someone doesn't come to Zoom, I can hop on email and say, hey, are you not at Zoom because you can't make it, or is it because, and like, I don't know, I would say 50% of the time they just forgot what day it was.
Sure.
And 50% they're like, I can't make it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And I really like the breakout groups. I don't think this would work at all.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for that. And I think I'm trying to think of ways, and I'm going to mention the elephant in the room, which is my brain is already freaking out about doing this virtual teaching in the fall.
Yes.
And so I'm thinking a lot about like, what can I do differently? And, so yeah, I'll get to that when I'm getting to the negatives, but some of it is like, I've lost some energy with the breakout rooms.
Uh-huh.
Like, and I don't know how to, I'll come to that. Sorry. Okay. I'm holding that. But what has worked well is the polling.
Oh,
and I've been able
excellent.
to use that for not a lot, because I haven't, been doing as much of it, but like the active learning type voting questions.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't really do, I don't know how to do the proper like pairing up where they chat about them. But we've had a lot more, like I've been able to go through and use the polling and then share my screen, and then they can vote on things. And that was kind of fun doing that.
So you like ask them a question, and then they have a minute to think about it and submit their answer? Is that how it works?
Yeah, and I think I haven't even been structuring it properly, like timing it. Do you know what I mean? But It's just been kind of like watching the poll come in, and they can't see it as it's coming in, and then I can just share the results.
Cool.
And then I'm just doing it on slides, so then I can kind of scroll down and show them what the answer is.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so that was good. That worked. So what are you working on?
So I guess I have two things again. The one thing that is very obvious is that my attendance is awful. I have 12 students, and, a good day is maybe 50%, but pretty common I have 2 who actually come. It's the same 2, so we've got a nice rapport with the 3 of us now.
That's some good teacher ratio, right?
Yeah, right? And one thing is, we were really encouraged, as I think I mentioned in a previous episode, by our university to be as asynchronous as possible, to be as flexible as possible. And so I specifically designed the class where I pre-record lectures. They watch them before our lecture time. And then during our lecture time, when we actually meet together on Zoom, we have I call it a Q&A session, where they bring whatever questions they have. I bring some discussion questions. They talk in groups. It's interaction with the material that they didn't get to have just watching the pre-recorded lecture. So I intentionally made it so that people wouldn't miss too much if they didn't come, but now they're not coming. So I don't know if it's really a problem, but I definitely wish more people would come because I'm trying to have them have this interaction with the material.
This is the kind of thing I think, like, that's what, like, especially, I don't know what age group or kind of where they are in their, but like for the freshmen, I think they need to have things be synchronous.
Sure.
Like, it's so, yeah, I think it's really beneficial for them.
And my
to
group
come and have
is
it synchronous.
More senior level, but still I think it's really helpful to interact with the material. It's really easy to listen and not understand. It's much more easy to interact, you know. So there's that. And I think for the fall, if at all possible, the solution is to have synchronous lectures. So that's fine. And we can talk more about that if you have more thoughts as well. The other thing that I'm working on that I'm not quite sure what to do about is I think we really lose a lot of casual conversations that are really important. Like students saying, you know, what they want to do after they graduate, or what they're having trouble with in this class or that class, or just what they're interested in. Those kind of things come up all the time if you're having office hours, or you're in the lab, or it's before class, or any of that kind of thing. Or also just me, you know, overhearing students chatting before class is a lot of information that we're not exchanging right now. So I'm trying to specifically reach out to students and say, hey, what did you end up deciding for grad school, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it really, I need to already know them for that to work. So it's definitely an added challenge. And I'm sure that there's other things I don't know about that I would know about if we were chatting face to face.
That is something that is terrifying me about the fall, because like I did have a relationship with these kids before the, you know, whatever, we went online. And so it's going to be very strange to try and establish that this way. And it feels like, because to me too, it feels like with the office hours, I've been just doing them email office hours. And it seems like such a bigger activation barrier for them. Do you know what I mean? And like, I feel like they, even in terms of asking questions, it's just so much more casual to put your hand up or make a face that I could be like, oh, do you have a question? And it feels so different.
Yeah.
I wonder, I mean, I feel like people do really clever stuff with discussion forums, and a lot of my problem has been just not having the bandwidth to go and figure out things. And I almost was like resistant to looking at all of the information that was flying around because I just couldn't handle it. Like I could barely focus on what it is we were trying to do without trying to like do all the bells and whistles.
Totally. Me too.
So
I threw them all into one email box that I'm planning to look at once the semester's over.
Great. If you read them and just break it down for me, that would be wonderful. So that would be great. Yeah. Well, one thing that might help with that is, again, the breakout rooms in Zoom. If we have small enough groups and we are meeting with, you know, synchronously so everybody's there, then maybe that would allow some more casual conversations with just a small group. I don't know, just a thought. Well, I managed to like lurk by accident into a breakout room the other day. Like I just came in and didn't really announce myself immediately, like not on purpose. I just was in there and they were kind of working and they were like chatting about star signs and stuff. And then I was like, oh, I'm a Pisces. And like they were just like, oh God, she's here.
That's so
super
funny.
I was like, this is great. This is like capturing how the classroom is, where I normally lurk around eavesdropping. And so that was exciting. But yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah.
What are you working on?
Oh, dude. I think my main thing is not mentally unraveling too much.
Well, that's an important thing.
And I also am having some delusions. I think I'm having some delusions.
About what?
Where I'm kind of like romanticizing how much time I have over the summer.
Oh,
so
I always do that every year.
Like when I go back, I know. So like, I'll figure all this. Like even now when I was saying something to you, like I'm going to invent all of these discussion forums. Like I'm probably not going to do any of those things. And then it'll all end up in August with, you know, anyway. So I think the biggest thing I'm really struggling with is how do you get them to watch the videos? And so I've been having, normally I would have Tuesday lecture, Wednesday activity, Thursday lecture, Friday lab.
Okay.
And now that we're online, I'm putting lectures up on Tuesday. We meet on Zoom for activity and we do worksheets. Put a lecture up on Thursday and then we meet on Friday and do more worksheets. And I've been polling them, and like at least 3 out of 12 people, or a quarter of them at least, haven't watched the video. And in the beginning, it kind of was okay because we were like continuing a topic that we had already started and had good foundation in, like before the break. And then once we got to new material, it's really difficult because they haven't watched the thing. They have literally no idea what kinetic energy is. We're trying to spend our time solving problems. And so that's something, I mean, it's too late now. That's right. Sorry, I'm like, it's too late. These guys are ruined. But it's like, but for the future, how do you, like, is there, so, okay, normally I have like an attendance sort of grade, which isn't super strict. And if people have reasons, it's completely fine. It's meant to be more about like accountability. Like, you should let me know if you didn't come to class, let me know why you didn't. And, you know, so it's super flexible. But I have like you weren't in class very often, so you're not getting these full, like it's like 2% or something. Yeah. But I don't have that now. And so how do I have accountability? And at what point, and not with these kids because they have so much stress going on and I know that. But in the future, at what point is there accountability of like, well, you didn't watch the lecture. I'm not going to retell you about what this topic is in this activity session. Like, I don't know where to have this kind of... One thing I thought about was, like, I have these reading assignments and I wonder, is there something like, what facial expression was I making at 10 minutes in my tweets? Do you know what I mean? Or like, what was the terrible joke I made near the end of... So I don't know, but like just to have gotten them to watch it, because it feels like that's a really important part. Like if they're not attending lecture, basically, it's really tricky.
That is interesting. So one thing I did was, because I wasn't sure what to do with my in-class exam, I switched it to a take-home exam, and most of it was stuff that I had said at some point in the lectures. So most students, you know, if they took the time to go look for the answers, they could do that, but they would have to go through the lectures. That didn't work 100%. You know, certainly some students went to the internet and came up with relevant but kind of weird answers. So, but at least that way I knew. And, you know, maybe they listened and missed it. That's totally possible. But that was a way of encouraging them in particular to go to the lectures. So, I mean, that's similar to what you were suggesting of having questions about the material.
I guess a lot of my anxiety is about buy-in and like this first physics class, I'm teaching this again in the fall, which is a good thing.
Great.
But it's real tricky because you kind of have one bunch of kids who kind of had physics in high school. And so they're just like, seen it all before. I don't even need to engage with this stuff. And it's sort of true up to a point, and then it's not true anymore. And sometimes they've disengaged so much they kind of miss that inflection point to get back in. And anyway, so I can well imagine people not watching videos. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And it's just tricky. So I don't like, so there's that. And then I think the biggest thing I've noticed with the kids and possibly with myself is the lost energy.
Sure. Like
I noticed like in the breakout rooms, like my attendance has been really hit or miss, but even when it's really good, there's just like 3 or 4 kids who have their cameras off, they're on mute the whole time. Like how do you, like, can you say to students like, when you're going to attend activity, I expect you to be fully engaged, and that means having, you know, your camera on, I don't know. Yeah,
I feel like the camera's a bit much, but certainly audio would be necessary, like so that they can discuss things.
Right, and it's so clear in class if someone is like totally disengaged.
Right.
And like either they're just freaked out or sometimes they're freeloading but it's easy to kind of go around and be like, hey friend, what do you think this is? Or, you know, kind of pull them in. And it's hard when it's like just there's no presence on the Zoom thing. So that's tricky, and I don't know how to manage that expectation, because I just feel like some people kind of, like you said, like there's so much more to this than what is the answer to part B, and there's so much just shooting the breeze and chatting and getting to know each other and building trust, and like, okay, this person isn't a jerk, so I do feel like I can ask them what, you know, how do you do that graph, or I don't know, there's just so much that goes into this beyond. So I don't know how to capture that at all. Sorry, this is very cheerful.
I mean, that is very, very challenging. I mean, certainly with starting a class from the beginning, virtual, you can set some expectations. Like, this is how the breakout groups work, you know, and the students have signed up to be taking this virtual class as well. And so, you know, this is
that is a difference,
class.
Right? Because the kids right now did not.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
they
that's
were
interesting.
Already committed. So yeah, I mean, it seems to me like we can have expectations. Like, you know, you normally have a class expectations chat of some kind.
Totally,
so this could be a virtual class. You know, what are the expectations? The expectations are you come and you participate, having watched the lecture.
Yeah, because I think, I mean, you know, I think we talked about this one time. Was this like in the leadership? I can't remember, but you know, when you're kind of, someone hasn't been to any of your lectures and then they're like, so, and you can kind of be like, oh, that's a shame because we actually did this in class and it'd be great if you got the notes. But so I don't know what the version of that is for this.
Well, one perk is the entire lecture, if it's pre-recorded, is available. So
right, so they can absolutely
totally do it. The only issue is if they are in activity and they're holding people back from not having watched it. But yeah, they can always go back and watch it. I guess we haven't decided, or I haven't, exactly how it's going to work in the fall, but if there are pre-recorded things there, that's kind of a bonus. They don't just need to get the notes. Totally.
And I think I have more complaints on my big list of grievances.
Okay, what are they?
But one thing I did not tackle at all is labs. And so I kind of, in my freak out of how we were going to do this switch over, I kind of was like, they have done some labs, they have some experience with that. The biggest skill set, like, I want to foster in them to get them successfully into the next class is to be able to solve problems. So that's what I focused on.
That makes sense. Very practical.
Right. And so, but I haven't done any labs, and I think I will need to in the fall. So that's like mildly terrifying. But so I think I will need to spend some time doing that. But yeah, it feels like the biggest thing is just kind of getting the energy going and getting, you know, that stuff.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed, like, watching back on my lectures, but I've started giving myself a little pep talk beforehand, like, because, you know, normally in the classroom you've got the students and they're watching you, and if they're looking bored, you have to be more energetic, and if it's just me and the computer, I'm like, okay, so here's what you do. So I have to be like, okay, guys, we're doing this.
Do you do, like, the power pose before?
Yeah.
But you do... Dude, I am, like, so awkward, because at first, thanks to you, I went to the room on campus, like when we were still able to go to campus, and recorded just a ton of lectures. But now I've transitioned to paper and pen with like this kind of weird snaky tripod thing that holds the phone above it. And it is so awkward. Every time I'm like, hi, it's me, your professor. And like, it's so weird. It's just so awkward. And then I'm gesturing off the page that they can't see. And, like, it's just super
classic.
lame.
I love it.
And then I didn't realize how much of a routine I actually have, because I keep like asking them questions.
Oh, I know.
And then I'm like, I will answer myself, and the answer is 5, and it's just so.
That sounds really entertaining, though.
It's by accident, though. It's not like on purpose, but they must be like, God, this lady. And her YouTube game is lame, but it is. It's funny. Quite lame. So yeah, I'm hoping that if this gets called, and we'll know soon, like, I would want to start recording lectures over the summer.
Wow.
And
that's a really good idea.
Well, yeah, and I think I'm still having a lot of fretting that if the kids are going to still be home in the fall, it's just so, it's really awkward because me and Eric keep having like not terrible fights, but definitely like, but like I need to work, and he's like, yeah, but I need to work, and it's like those things are both true, but the math doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Like it's just, yeah. And so yeah, I definitely want to do as much as I can. And I guess I was wondering, like, have you thought about, all of my lectures now are kind of unusable?
Yeah, me
because
too.
I keep referring to like COVID and like just things we used to do, or what we did last week in activity, or
yeah.
do you remember the funny thing so and so said? And,
me too.
and even I keep being like, oh, my cats are running down the hall right now, that's what that noise is, or sorry, I have allergies, that's why I'm sniffling constantly. And anyway, all of these added flavor that really doesn't need to be there. But I'm wondering, like, should we be doing a thing where these would be like reusable videos in the future?
I've been thinking about that a lot too, because I really prefer, if they're not going to be reused, I prefer the way of adding the little flavor and local touch or whatever. But it does seem like it'd be nice if they were reusable. So, yeah.
Because a few things that have come up for me just about this whole thing is like, is there some things we could do at home, like, in the future?
Yeah, good question.
You know, like, because like, there's definitely some days where like the only thing I have on campus, like not very often, but like the only thing you have on campus is a meeting, or the only thing you have on campus is office hours. Like, could you do that by Zoom now? Or like one thing, again, this is localized to me problem, but every spring the kids have 2 spring breaks. And neither of them line up with ours. And so it's always this like bananas time where like me and Eric are like swapping kids in the parking lot and trying to like, it's just like a whole thing. Or else like on one very disastrous occasion, my eldest daughter came to class for 15 minutes while I was waiting for the babysitter to come. And that was quite an epic 15 minutes. She managed to get a lot done in that period of time. So it was impressive. But man. I was like wondering, like, could that be a week then where like maybe I could be more at home, or like do my office hours over Zoom instead of, you know, so it definitely gives some like flexibility. What could you do in the future? But
that's a good question.
Should we make these videos then that we could use again and be like, here is a video on conservation of momentum?
I mean, another perk is, there's like a bunch of perks. There's flipped classrooms where you do the pre-recorded lecture in advance. And if we ever wanted to do that in the future, that'd be good to have. Then there's also, what if somebody didn't get it and wants to rewatch? You know, I know of people that post their lectures throughout the semester, but this would be an even better version, potentially, because it's designed to be pre-recorded.
Dude, you know, some of this too, like, it feels like, again, this is me fantasizing about the summer that isn't going to happen, but anyway, like, you know, we've talked about it before, and I feel so, like, reactive in how I teach. Like, I have a big binder, and I just go in, and I'm on the next page. Like, they're organized by week, but there isn't any great, like, here's the module on this, and here's this, and like, I guess you could do some serious mapping things out and planning it out, and like, rather than this is Tuesday's lecture, it would be like, this is the lecture on energy, or this is the lecture on friction, or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, that could just happen naturally. Like, you know, if you're recording a lecture and you've got 10 minutes left in class, but you finished a topic, just stop it. Or something like that. Right.
Yeah. I think, okay, that's another thing I was thinking about too, is what is the optimal length of lectures? Like, at the moment, it's the lecture that will take the least amount of time to get up on YouTube, because that takes about 9 hours or something. And so,
yeah.
But also, like, in my daughter's school, she's having some lecture, like, you know, videos. And obviously she's 7, so it's a different demographic, but like 25 minutes is way too long.
Sure.
That is, she cannot,
interesting,
you know. And so I wonder, like, what is the realistic lecture time? Because I have also heard, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I have also heard students saying, like, they were grumbling about someone else, and they were like, we only got like X amount of minutes of content compared to what we should have gotten. But then I know, like, for myself, I don't talk for 50 minutes.
Right. What with all the interactions that you normally have in the classroom, it doesn't, like, it would be shorter if you did a pre-recorded lecture. I've heard 20 minutes, but I don't know. I mean, I've kind of been experimenting. I started out with 50-minute chunks, and then I started doing it a little bit more like by topic, and then I ended up with a bonus lecture at the end, so I did a fun case study just for fun.
Cool.
So anyway, I don't know. I tend to like the topic idea.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think, because I think one day I definitely put up like 45 minutes worth of lectures, and it seemed like way too much for them to get through. So, yeah. So should we do this again in August where it's I'll be like, all that stuff I thought I was going to do over the summer.
Yeah, maybe we'll have another, okay, but what are we actually doing?
It's like, scratch that. We're just doing. Well, I had a question for you.
Okay.
Do you remember, and starting the semester, and you did your syllabus?
I've been thinking about that.
Do tell, because I'm kind of inspired. If you do it, I'll do it, but I don't want to do it.
No, let's do it. The only hesitation I have is, do we know if we're doing virtual fall or not? But I hope that we will. But yes, finals week is the time to make the fall syllabus. So I'm just going to do it.
And let's even, I guess the thing is, right, because I was like, what are you doing, you crazy? But I guess you can change it.
You can always change it.
But then you still have it, like it's the first draft is done.
Yeah. And and so you can, always add your office hours or what have you.
Yeah, but to have the main bulk of it.
And if we know whether we're doing virtual or not, then of course we can do that. But if we don't know, I mean, I'm not going to make a whole virtual syllabus if I don't know.
Yeah, totally. Dude.
All right.
Here we are.
Good thoughts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Now that we're experts.
A whole half semester of experience.
Like 15 things I don't know about what to do.
I know.
Can I say a thing before we go? So we have started getting some communication from the outside world.
Ooh.
And every time we do, get so excited and send each other a flurry of texts. And it's super exciting. But so I obviously just really enjoy chatting with you, but it's very cool and exciting to know that there is people out in the universe listening to this.
Yes.
So thank you so much for anyone who has reached out either through a comment or an online rating or an email. It's magical and wonderful to hear from you.
It's so wonderful. Thank you so much. And we look forward to hearing from anyone else who wants to reach out too. Thank you.
Yeah, and someday I have a dream that we could do a listener mail episode.
Oh man, yes. It's a great idea.
That would be super cool. So yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Ruth.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Professor Podcast with Ruth and Claire. We're delighted to have you as a listener, and we would love to hear from you. And if you want to email us, our address is contactprofessorpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear any of your suggestions for future shows or professor quotes that you might want to share with us, or even just things that have come up for you when you were listening to previous episodes. And if you've been enjoying the podcast, we would love if you would spread the word. So the best way to spread word is by telling people if you think they should listen to it, or you can leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.